One of the things I like to stress about the figure questions, the graphs, the charts, all of those, when we're on the reading section and the question is about the figure, it's almost always just about the figure. And so if you start thinking too much about what was going on in the passage, you're probably going to get it wrong because the information that they're asking about is supposed to be on the figure. And if it's not there, even if it's in the passage, it can't support a question about the figure. So this is a good example where I think if you follow that advice, the answer is pretty obvious. I'll show you what you should pick just based on that advice, and then we can look at the passage and I'll prove it to you, but let's see how I would do this first and foremost. Based on the description of Wegner's fourth experiment, what is the most likely explanation for the findings for the largest single group of participants represented in the graph? So, okay, that's clearly this group that remembered nothing. And we know we're talking about the fourth experiment because it says it in the title. So they're saying, why did these people remember nothing? Okay, so I look at this graph. I can look at it pretty closely, right? What do they tell us? They tell us that some people remembered folders and some people remembered statements. And, okay, great. It tells us, yeah, same thing here, folders and statements, percent of participants, nothing new there. So, okay. The short answer is, I don't know. I don't know why they would remember one thing over another. I have the results of what they remembered, but nothing on this graph tells me why that may be the case. Now, I could come up with my own theories, but remember, this is an SAT. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to answer the question the way that I think it should be answered. I need to go based on what's given. It's the evidence-based reading and writing section. I need evidence. And right now, I have no evidence in any direction about why these people didn't remember anything. Okay? So let's look at the choices. Those participants focused on remembering the folder locations. I have no idea what they focused on. It's not in the graph. Those participants attempted to remember the statements and the folder locations. I have no idea what they attempted to remember because it's not on the graph. Those participants did not attempt to remember any specific pieces of information. I have no idea what they did or did not attempt because it's not on the graph. There is not enough information to determine the cause of the results for those participants. For some reason, people are really scared of picking these answer choices for the graph questions. I don't know why. If you're confused by something, if there's no evidence of it, there's no evidence. That's a perfectly valid answer. So that's the answer here. I would have been able to get that without looking at the passage. But if you're nervous, there's pretty clear descriptions about what they want. So you could go to the lines and see if there's anything else that maybe the lines suggest would answer the question. So we go to it. The description of his fourth experiment. Here's my passage. And he does say it somewhere over here. In a fourth experiment. So right here, they talk about it. So what do they say? In a fourth experiment, participants typed into a computer statements they were told would be saved in specific folders. Okay. Next, they were asked to recall the statements. So I don't know what they were doing as they were typing those things into the folders. I have no idea what their thought process was. I have no idea what they were trying to remember, attempting to remember. Again, there's no information there about that. Next, they were asked to recall the statements. Okay, they were asked, but I don't know what their thought process was. I don't know what their participants were thinking. Finally, they were given cues to the wording and asked to name the folders where the statements were stored. The participants proved better able to recall the folder locations than the statements themselves. So again, it's talking about the results, but it's not saying why any participants remembered or did not remember anything. It's talking about it as a whole and saying, here's what most people found. This is what happened for most people. But we don't know why that happened. We don't know what those people were thinking as they were doing the typing and the remembering and all that stuff. It's never stated in these lines, and it's never talked about in this graph. So it's okay to say that there's not enough information. Sometimes there's not enough information. Your job is to figure that out, and that's why sometimes your confusion can actually be a good thing. If you're confused, it might be because you're supposed to be confused. There's nothing to prove one way or another. So don't panic. Just follow the instructions and pick these answers. And stick to the graph if you can. Only go to the passage if you absolutely need to.